going on, everybody? Welcome back to my random horror review series. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, episode 88 is coming at you live, and today we're going to take it all the way back to 1981 with the brand new 4K release from the fine folks over at Arrow Video, and they have brought to us today An American Werewolf in London on 4K in one of these big hard boxes. Yes. Yes, An American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis. Of course, this is like controversial John Landis, so the Twilight Zone movie controversy. Music by Elmer Bernstein, man, who actually did the music for Ghostbusters, and he did the music for a ton of like really good comedies. He did the music for Airplane 2. I think he did Meatballs, like an abundance of movies and stuff like that. Shot by Robert Painter. And I know Robert Painter as the DP from Curtains. He shot the slasher film from 1983, Curtains, and he also went on to do Little Shop of Horrors also. So, yeah, it almost seems like those movies could have been shot before this one, but yeah, no, he's done some pretty good work and stuff, but An American Werewolf in London. What is there to say about American Werewolf in London? This movie has been talked to death, but we'll get into a quick little synopsis here. Of course, this one's starring David McNaughton also. So basically, we got these two best friends, David and Jack, who are American tourists, and they're in London, and they're kind of backpacking through the moors in England and stuff like that. And this one day they stop at this pub called the Slaughtered Lamb for some eats and some drinks and stuff. Of course, they don't serve food. They have a quick little interactions with the fine town folk there and stuff. One thing leads to another. They end up leaving prematurely, and of course they go back out into the moors and they get attacked by a kind of like a wolf kind of creature thing. Jack is killed and David is hurt. He wakes up in the hospital about 3 weeks later, not knowing what the hell really happened to him. All he can kind of remember is that he wasn't attacked by a person, it was more of a wolf. Of course, nobody believes him. And then he starts to have these like really vicious nightmares, and then he starts having these daymares where Jack is actually coming to talk to him, and Jack is saying that, since he's been in a coma for 3 weeks, he's going to turn into a werewolf in a couple days, and the only way to prevent, a catastrophe of him going out there and killing people is to kill himself, because the only way to end the werewolf curse is to end the werewolf's lifeline, and, by killing himself and stuff like that. So he's very confused on what the hell is going on, and so he's trying to deal with that. So that is, the quick little synopsis of the movie. Now, my thoughts on American Werewolf in London. I've always kind of had this like love-hate relationship with this film. I will state right off the bat, I'm a bigger Howling fan, and it's more to do with the narrative. Now, I think the effects are probably a lot better in this movie and stuff, but it's the core narrative of the Howling I really do like. I like the whole colony aspect of this one. This one right here, I feel like it peaks too early in the movie. I feel like, the opening scene where, they go to the Slaughtered Lamb and they get attacked and stuff is fantastic. But, it's about 12 minutes into the movie before David McNaughton wakes up in the hotel, or in the hospital. And I feel like I wish they had have extended the first act in this movie a lot more to kind of take away from the slower second act in this movie where, he starts up a relationship with the nurse and he ends up moving in with her and stuff like that. And, the middle of the movie kind of feels like to me that it's like a romance disguised as a werewolf movie and stuff. A lot of the kills that happen in the middle part of the movie are actually off screen. There is some carnage towards the end, especially in like the last 10 minutes of the movie where shit kind of goes batshit crazy and stuff, and we get some decapitations and we see people getting all gnarled up and shit like that. But a lot of the kills, the subway kill off screen and things like that, which is kind of a shame because obviously this movie is well known for its amazing transformation scene, which still to this day looks amazing, especially in like a 4K type transfer. It looks fantastic. But I just kind of feel like the middle of the film is just, it's good. It's entertaining. This movie rips by. It's about 97 minutes long. There's nothing really too wrong with this. I just prefer the narrative of The Howling. And with that said, I really do like this movie. I just wish it was just kind of extended in the first act. All performances are really good. Like I said, cinematography, music, all these type of things. The setting, it's just all so well done in this. The humor is really good. One of my biggest complaints with this film that I've always had is that I feel like some of the best scenes in this film are nightmare scenes. bona fide the best scene in this movie, or my favorite scene in this film, is the brutal kind of demon Nazi scene where, you know, he's having this nightmare where he's sitting at home with his family, and these demon Nazis from World War II break through the doors and just start shooting up everybody, and they slit his throat, and it's just pure carnage. But it's really just kind of a play on the reality of the horror reality of what really happened in World War II, which is kind of cool and stuff. And I like all the interactions with Jack too, as he's, you know, in the beginning of the film, he's like freshly gnarled up, and as the film progresses, he's getting more and more rotten and stuff like that, because David McNaughton hasn't taken care of what he should be taking care of, like by ending the curse and stuff like that. So those are all really cool. I love, you know, the scene where he's sitting around with all the people towards the end of the film, all the people that he's killed and shit, and they're all interacting, and they're all these bums are all pissed off at him and stuff. It's kind of cool. There's some decent comedy in here. I always remember this movie to be a little bit more goofy, and like I haven't watched it in a while, but it really isn't though. The comedy is very witty. The writing is very good in this film. And with that said too, there's a special feature on here which I thought was highly, highly amazing. It's called I Think He's a Jew. The Werewolf's Secret, a video essay. Now, I was looking through the features on this, and I was like, what the hell is that? And, you know, when you watch this movie, you understand that our two lead characters are obviously young Jewish men, and there is a lot of Jewish moments in the film. You know, like there's this really racist scene in the film where the nurse, she says to this other nurse, she's like, oh, I think he's a Jew, where the title of the essay comes from. And she's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, I checked, kind of thing. But it's that moment right there is what kind of sets up this whole video essay to kind of break it down, how John Landis wrote this movie as basically an allegory for Jewish identity. And you do realize right off the hop that our main characters are Jewish. They've got Jewish surnames and stuff. That's pretty obvious. And obviously with the scene with his family being murdered by the demon Nazis and stuff like that. But there's all these little anecdotes throughout the film and stuff like that that are quite interesting that he points out. And I don't know if John Landis has ever been on record saying that he wrote this movie as an allegory for the Jewish identities and stuff. But when you break it down in the essay, it's actually it's really amazing, and it's kind of cool. It makes the film kind of a little bit more interesting because, like I said, the middle of the film is a little bit slower to me. It's, you know, still entertaining, but it's not like my favorite thing in the world. But when I watched this essay, I was like, oh, it's really cool. And I always thought it was interesting how the film starts out with our two main characters in the back of this truck. And they're sitting in the back of the sheep truck, right? And I always knew that meant something. And I was like, okay, I never really put the Jewish aspect with the sheep and kind of like, you know, a wolf in sheep clothing. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because there is a point in the film where he talks about how Jewish people can, you know, kind of blend in these type of countries and stuff because of their white skin and stuff like that. Hence, you know, sheep in wolf's clothing. And I just thought that was really interesting. But there's all these little parts, and that's a really cool special feature on here. In fact, there's just tons of special features. There's a brand new full-length documentary on here also that deals with, you know, the history of the werewolf film, Universal Werewolves and stuff, which I thought was really cool. It's full-length. It's like 90 minutes long or something like that. And, of course, it does have the old full-length documentary also. And there's just tons and tons. There's a couple commentaries on here. There's interviews with everybody. There's so much special features on this edition right here. It's just insane. Of course, I've got it reversed to the original artwork and things like that. Yeah, An American Werewolf in London. Really good film. Really, really good film. Not my favorite, right? And that's okay. It doesn't have to be everyone's favorite werewolf film. I think it's fantastic in the aspect of the way it's shot, the way it sounds, the way it looks. And honestly, like after watching that allegory, that thing about the Jewish identity, that was just really cool too and stuff. But, you know, if I had to rate this movie, I'm coming in at an 8 out of 10. I know people are like, oh, it's fucking blasphemy, it's blasphemy. But again, I do prefer The Howling. It's just what I prefer. And I'm not directly wanting to compare the two, but it's hard not to, in the fact that they came out in the same year, and they're always compared. But I just want to let people know right up front that I like The Howling more than this movie. But there's nothing wrong with An American Werewolf in London. In fact, I really always enjoyed David McNaughton's performance in this. He's being kind of goofy and silly without being over the top goofy silly, if that makes any sense. I think his performance just really does work for the material that's given to him. Because the movie at core is kind of lighthearted, but at the same time it is possibly dealing with, you know, this racial aspect of Jewish identity and things like that. And it's also a werewolf film. There's also blood and gore, and there's other things that are going on. You know, I just really like the scene where he steals the kids' balloons. Like, that scene is just fantastic. But overall, yeah, American Werewolf in London had a fantastic release from Arrow. This release right here gets a 10 out of 10. It's fantastic. Of course, it has the booklet and the poster, which I'll probably, you know, take a closer look. And yeah, what else to say about American Werewolf in London? It's a good film. I'm sure there's other people out there that like it a lot more than I do, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great watch. So, yes, American Werewolf in London. Yes, look at the, like, when you see that much writing for features, that's just utterly ridiculous. So, yeah. Yeah. 8 out of 10 for myself. I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it here for episode 88. And I'll be back soon with some more reviews. All right, guys. And as usual, deuces!